Deborah and Angela, welcome to the Motherly Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks for having
you.
us.
All right, so Deborah, you are a mom of 3 sons, and Angela, you are an aunt and a godmother.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about what you've learned about motherhood, experiencing this together, especially working together and as sisters? Maybe Deborah, you can start.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, being a mom is just, it's, I always say it's the hardest, but most rewarding job you could ever have. And I think somebody early on told me, and I'm sure you've probably heard this phrase of like the days being long, but the years going by fast. And so really trying to soak in each moment, even the hard days, but also realizing how much our kids are learning from us, whether they say it or not. And especially in these years where, having a 1-year-old, 4-year-old, and 7-year-old can feel so challenging in so many different ways. They're extremely impressionable at this age. And what we're showing them, even by saying, yeah, you can have children and still lead and create your own business. You can still do these things. To me, it's just a lesson that I feel like is invaluable. And so again, it's such a rewarding opportunity to have 3 boys who are awesome, and then to be able to co-found a business at the same time with not just my sister, but my best friend and the godmother to all 3 of my boys, and being able to lean on her, because there were times where my kids were sick and we'd have to still run the business, still have meetings, and she would hold Ethan while I'm running to the, and to the meeting and things like that. It's been extremely, extremely rewarding for me.
Yeah. And, it's just one of those things where when we were starting the business, and so many people give major credit to like large celebrities, like, oh, we have the same 24 hours in the day as Oprah. We can do so much more. And I always say, I have the same hours in the day as Deborah. I just could not believe all the things that she was able to accomplish. When we were starting Quick Hire, it was in, around March, April of 2020. Of course, there was so much happening in the world during that time. But Deborah was about to have a baby. Like that, it was when she was about to have Ethan, and she literally was in the delivery room looking at presentations, looking at the designs of the layout of the app, and I'm like, girl, this can wait. It's okay. But literally, that was that mentality when we were first starting, and Ethan was just born. She was sending these emails to VCs at like 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. And she's like, I'm up feeding the baby anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this done. So it's just amazing to watch, just the power of a mother. And even, when people are asking like, you guys are women and, how can you be CEOs and all of that? I'm like, you have no idea the amount of power that we have and that Deborah has shown. I'm just always just in awe of it. And however I can just support her in that, and as we continue to go out Quick Hire, it's just an honor to watch.
Well, Deborah, I'm sure it's like lovely and comforting to hear your sister describe your superpowers in that way. I know I've experienced a bit of this time magic as a mother. Like the amount of things that I have to do in any given day, I think I don't think I was capable of them before I became a mom. And I was, but can you talk a bit about your own journey from being a full human before children to how you've evolved and grown and bent time, to build your family and build a business? How have you changed?
Goodness, you are so spot on. There are times where I stop and I'm like, man, was I doing nothing before kids? Because of the amount of of capacity that I feel like I have been able to take on. And I just think that I mean, there's a couple different things. First of all, it's like the physical side of it, where like your body just goes through so much, even just from growing a child and childbirth and even the aftermath, that physically, like your body is almost pushed to the limits in a way where, you know, getting up early now to get some stuff done is nothing. You know, so there's like the physical part of it where you are just, your body is pushed to a new level that it's never been pushed before. And then also you're seeing hours that you've never been seen before. Before I had kids, I would always say, like in college, I had this rule of like, don't call me before 10 a.m. And now I just think that's so funny because by 10 a.m. I've done so many things. And so, you know, you see just new hours. You're up every hour or two. You learn how to operate off of very little sleep. You learn how to be productive because life still has to go on. And if you have multiple children, you have other kids who need you, you know, you can't just lay in bed. And so again, like you are just used to now being more productive. And that to me, even though now I'm starting to get into a phase where, you know, my kids now sleep through the night, I still have that same mentality, that clock of like, okay, my body is used to moving. Like, let's be productive then while I'm moving. And so, yeah, I just feel like there is nothing like carrying a child and going through all of that and just the physical boundaries that are pushed, that just increases your capacity.
Mm-hmm. Well, Angela, thank you for saying that so well about witnessing your sister. But I know that I felt, and I think many other women feel this way. Like, I know I felt that I was at capacity before having kids, right? Like, I didn't think I had a lot of time. I felt busy. I felt like I needed breaks and all of that. And just reflecting, like, what is it? Is it the love that you feel, the responsibility that you just have to get to this level that I personally thought I could never be at? I had a fixed mindset. Like, I could never do that. And I am, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what is so beautiful and unique about our situation is the village that Angie has wrapped around me. So when we decided to start Quick Hire, she and her husband decided to move into our basement and we built this thing together. And that to me was such a special time because not only did she want to be close to, you know, help work on the business, but the business was able to move forward because she was my village. At the time, I had Ethan April 11th of 2020. We founded the business, April 1st of 2020. And so at the time, I had an itty bitty child, and trying to do everything was really, really difficult. But having her there to help take that load off, mm-hmm. to me, I just think is so valuable, because even though we do have this increased capacity as mothers, we still do have our breaking point.
Yeah.
And I think having that village is so critical, and Angie is definitely a part of mine.
Well, Angie, can you talk a bit about being an aunt and a godmother? Like, clearly you're incredibly devoted and present in the lives of these children and your sister. What does it mean to you? What does it feel like? We talk so much at Motherly about what it feels like to become a mother, but I feel like the aunts, the aunties,
Yeah.
they have a really unique and powerful role in many of our lives. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is. It's one thing to be an aunt, and it's another thing to be a godmother. Like, this is a chosen figure that the parents are very intentional that they want your children to be a part of your life, and they want their children to be influenced by you and things like that. And so it's just really an honor to really be seen in that capacity of, because always, I mean, I am we have so many nieces and nephews. There's probably about 10 or 11 of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like the fun aunt to
Love
everyone,
that.
coming in and dancing and all that good stuff. But when you're someone's godmother, it's like, okay, you want to have those moments of, even if there's small moments of teaching them about life and having some kind of influence in some capacity, to help them with their growth. And so, you know, even in that opportunity that we had to stay with Deborah, it was like a no-brainer. It
Mm,
was a huge life change in my life because that was a time where we decided to go all in on quick hire. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and we decided, hey, let's go all in on quick hire, and I moved back to Deborah's house. But a lot of people were like, how could you do that? Like, what? Like, and I just saw it as such an opportunity to create memories, with my godsons, and really have that influence on that day-to-day capacity, which I don't get, all the time. So any opportunity that I have with them is just, so special. And even just how they have the relationship with my husband as well. It's just, to be seen as like a part of their life and try to give that impact in any way that I can is something that I really, value.
I wish I had my sister in my basement. I'll tell you that. We're like best friends, but she lives far away. So, like, I don't know. It kind of sounds amazing to me. All right. Tell us the backstory of Quick Hire. I know you had this idea for a long
Yeah.
time. What is this idea? Why is it so needed? And why did you decide to launch it in the middle of having a baby, Deborah, and a global pandemic?
Yes.
We said, like, listening back now and thinking back, we sound insane. And sometimes I'm
Right.
like, were we crazy? But I'll let Angie take this one.
Yeah, so the idea for Quick Hire, was actually in the works for quite some time. I worked as a career and educational advisor while I was living in Los Angeles in inner city schools. And actually, there was one circumstance where a student, she came into my office and she was looking for help finding, a local job opportunity at a grocery store or retail store. And she brought me all of these paper applications. And the school that I worked at was severely underfunded. They didn't have a computer lab, and she needed to borrow my computer to continue her job search. And it struck me in that moment that while it's been quite some time since I've worked in those spaces, since Deborah's worked in those spaces, since our parents, who migrated here from Uganda, worked in those spaces, the process of finding a job in like the service industry is pretty much still the same. You may have to walk around to see those help wanted signs in the window just for them to give you a paper application, and you may not hear back for weeks and weeks, just to find out that you got denied. And so it struck me in that moment that something is happening there. And it wasn't just that, but I realized that a lot of people, if they were not college bound students, there weren't a lot of tools and resources given to
Mm-hmm.
them. If you were headed to college, there were so many people just even trying to influence you and letting you know of career opportunities and, what majors you can do and all of that. But we had a lot of students that were not college bound. We had a lot of students that actually dropped out and they weren't given anything. They were just given like a good luck. And I talked to Deborah about this, and we realized that there was a real issue in not just, getting access to these opportunities, but also career progression. You can start out as a cashier and become a regional manager. How can we make sure that people have the tools and resources to see the opportunity in this workforce? So this is something that we were mulling over for quite some time, but I would always bring it to Deborah, and she was like, "That's a great idea. You should do it." And I was like, "We got to do it together." But at the time, we had our different, careers. Deborah had her own PR firm, so I would just continue to just bring it up, year after year, month after month. But then, as we saw with the pandemic, millions of people lost their jobs. Millions of people had to reskill. I always say this, Deborah, she gave me a call at 4 a.m. saying, "You remember the app you were talking about? We have to do it. Now is the
Wow.
time. We have to help people get back to work, and figure things out. And so that was really, COVID was the catalyst, to get things going with Quick Hire.
Mm-hmm.
Slight amendment, it was not 4 a.m., but
It was.
whatever.
Was 4 a.m. in California?
Yes.
Exactly.
All right, give me the one-liner, or give me your elevator pitch on what Quick Hire is.
Quick Hire is a career discovery platform for the service economy. So we work on helping people find the right job and the right advancement opportunities.
And as Angela pointed out, there have been like so much investment. There has been so much investment in jobs for highly educated workers, for digital workers, right? All of these startups, but very little for those who are service workers. And to your point, Angela, not necessarily college bound, or at least not right now. There
Hmm.
hasn't been much innovation there.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. I always say that Angela and I, we always knew how important these jobs were, but it took a global pandemic for everybody else to realize. When the world shut down, who were the people that were really keeping everything going? And it's beyond just the service industry, but like just even thinking about non-traditional education, pathway type of careers, service, skilled trade, the deemed blue collar, which is a word that we try to stay away from. But I think that is when people started to realize, wait, something else is going on here. And then as, different folks in the service industry had to close, a lot of people started looking at different opportunities that they could go into. Then restaurants and service industry establishments start reopening, and they realized they had no talent. Everybody had either moved on, or they're saying, hey, I now know what my worth is. I now know that I should have been paid way more. I now know that I should have had opportunity to move up. All of these different things that were pre-pandemic. However, the pandemic it shed light on a lot of issues that have been plaguing the industry. And so I think now we're starting to finally see the shift in the investment and the mindset as far as people, how they view this industry.
Why do you think it took the two of you, Angela in the basement, like to serve such a large group of Americans who need and want to work?
Yeah, I think luckily we had the foresight. I think for us, as we said, that we've always been kind of connected to this problem, but we never felt like it was the right time to act on it. There are a lot of players in HR tech and recruiting and things like that, and so trying to introduce a new solution, even though we knew that it was valuable, was going to be difficult to do in a relatively noisy market. But when the world started to shut down, we luckily had the correct foresight as far as it being the right moment in time for people to listen, because the reality is that this could have gone in so many different ways. So I think that other people may have had an inclination that there could be some shifts here, but I think a lot of people were just risk averse when it came to it. I think Angie and I, we were passionate enough about it, coupled with the right foresight, to make it happen.
At the right time, too.
Yeah.
What do you think the pandemic taught us about the way that our culture thinks about work? I'm thinking about just terms like essential workers and, okay, they're essential, but they're underpaid. What do you think some of those lessons were that came out of the pandemic about work?
So many lessons. I think definitely when the reopening happened, we saw a lot of, especially service industry employers, try to acquire talent the same way that they had previously. And now that they had unemployment opportunities, they had time where the restaurants and other service industry establishments were closed, so they had to figure out other opportunities. They had time to figure out what else was out there for them. And so a lot of workers they weren't down for it. So I think some of the lessons was especially on the employer side. It made them think differently about like, okay, how are we paying these people? What are our work conditions? Are there other ways that we can incentivize people? Now we're seeing people, employers in the service industry give sign-on bonuses. That was something they never did before. I know when I was working as a server, I never got a sign-on bonus. Just all of these different things. I think that they actually really started to, I think those were the shifts that we started to see. And I think Angie, she was working with a lot of employers as far as like really trying to coach them as far as like, this is how you need to put your best foot forward, or else you're going to miss out on good talent. So I definitely think that pay was a big part of it. Angie, what do you think?
Yeah, and even how we're just viewing this workforce, some of the terms that we use are degrading. They would say unskilled workers, and they're talking about people that are running stores and running restaurants, and you're saying that they're unskilled. Just because someone doesn't have a 4-year degree or college education doesn't mean that they don't have any skill, and doesn't mean that they shouldn't have benefits and work-life balance and all of that. We had so many people, because we're a startup, we had the opportunity to speak with a lot of applicants and a lot of our users, and they were saying, I worked on my feet for 10 years. I don't want to do that anymore. I never had a day off. Now, I've been in COVID and I've been able to stay with my kids. I want to have a job that I can have work-life balance and be there to pick my children up from school. This is something that should be given to every, human, not just a person that has a certain pedigree. So I think how we're looking and how we are valuing everyone in this workforce needs to be really looked at again, and all of this classist stuff. It's terrible. So I think definitely like how we are viewing people has got to change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Angela. You said it so well. I know you both have said that you are proud to be underserved founders serving underserved workers in an underserved geographic region. Can you break down all of those, elements? Because it really makes you, unique and essential in your own way in the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. So I'm probably going to work backwards with starting with the underserved geographic region. So we are from Wichita, Kansas. And every time we say that, people are like, where? And the reality is that there's a lot of great things about this area, but one of the things that we noticed is it's vastly underserved when it comes to talent solutions. A lot of the talent solutions that are out there are very much heavily focused on coastal talent. And the nuances there, which are just completely different. If you've ever had the opportunity to live in different markets, you'll notice just vastly how different they are. And but there are huge conglomerates that are based in the Midwest, and there's a lot of opportunity that has really been overlooked because of a lot of people's focused on the coast. And that's no knock on the coast, but for us, we're like, we're from this area, why not focus here? So that is the underserved geographic region element of it. The underserved worker, as we were talking about earlier, is that this is a segment of the workforce that has been vastly ignored. Yes, COVID was a catalyst for many things, but these are just, the Great Resignation is a result of decades long problems. The career stifling, the unfair pay, the neglect, the horrible work environments. All of these things are issues that have been going on for so long, and the solutions that are out there focusing on the desk worker and saying that you have to go to college to be successful. We're here to say, hey, we know that you're the backbone of this economy and you haven't been served appropriately. So that's something that we take a lot of pride in. And then finally, the underserved founder. When we started working on Quick Hire, we quickly realized how much Quick Hire was bigger than ourselves. Not just by who we're serving directly through the app, but who we're representing as Black mothers, women, founders in tech. That to us was something that became more and more apparent as we became more and more visible and started to try to navigate certain areas where we realized, wow, we are very underrepresented in so many different areas within just trying to build a tech company. Mm-hmm. And so for us, we're starting to realize that we have so many goals for Quick Hire and as a business. But if that means that we can help other underserved founders, other underrepresented founders along the way, that for us is also a win.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a bit about motherhood and launching a startup, or maybe pitching VCs from the delivery room, it sounds like? Also doing that in a pandemic. Mm-hmm. How did you do that? And how did you talk to yourself about how like, it just sounds like a lot to have gone through all at the same time. How did you make it work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I got to be honest with you. I think that I have recently begun doing more self-reflection about what it really is like to be a mom in tech. Because what I'm starting to realize is that there are other parts of me that are very visible that I can't deny. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at me and you see a Black woman. Mm-hmm. That's something, there's nothing, I can't hide that. The motherhood role is something that somebody can't instantly tell by looking at me unless my kids are with me. And I'm starting to realize that it's one of the hats that, even though I'm so proud of, that I feel like has been buried, especially while working with VCs. And I didn't even realize, I think it was one of those subconscious things, but I think that along the way, people have planted things that I think have suppressed certain parts of my journey and my story. So I'll never forget one of our close advisors, and he said it in a place of love. Like, it wasn't a place of like trying to minimize my role as a mom, but he cautioned me, because in our pitch meeting, I was saying how, I have 3 kids and I don't have time to not get this right. Like, this is so important for me. And he cautioned me and he said, you know what? I would just be careful as far as who you tell you're a mom, because some investors may feel like, oh, she does not have time to build this business, because I know what my wife does to raise our kids. There is no way that she's going to have time for this. And so when he said that, I was like, I blew it off. But then I realized, I was reflecting, we went ahead and raised our money. And we were so proud of that. But now, as I'm having, ongoing investor discussions with some of our current investors, it's just now starting to come up about me being a mom. They're like, oh, I didn't know you had kids. Mm-hmm. And so it made me realize, like, did I just subconsciously suppress that part of me out of fear of judgment, or out of fear of not getting the investment for a Quick Hire that I know this business deserves because of people's judgments of it, So it's something that I'm really honestly starting to reflect on a lot, and I'm still grappling with, and trying to figure out how I can lean into that more.
I mean, thank you for sharing that story. I certainly have experienced versions of that here. Motherly is a venture-backed company as well, and we're called Motherly. It's kind of hard to hide it, but there's certainly aspects of anti-mom bias that comes up in doing any kind of work in finance too. This is one form of obstacle that working mothers encounter in the workforce, right? Feeling that we need to hide that we're moms, or I'm a mom, but don't worry, I can do everything at all times to anyone. Yes. Don't worry, it doesn't affect me, right? As opposed to, I am a mom. I am amazing. I know how to radically prioritize. I know what real struggle is like. I want to make the world a better place, right? And leaning into like all the good stuff. But I guess I want to talk a bit about motherhood and work, and what are some of the structural cultural, technological barriers that mothers that you serve, that you've seen, what do they face? What are they up against trying to support their families?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've noticed a lot as we were starting to help job seekers find work again, a lot of them were moms who, when COVID happened, had to quit their jobs to stay home with their kids. And to help with like the online learning and all of those elements. And so that was one thing that we noticed, was there was just a lot of re-entry from that standpoint. And also, I will say that the employers who are winning are the ones who are flexible, the ones that are flexible when it comes to the type of shifts or how they can work, or can they work from home, all of these different things. I will say that Angela and I, we've been very intentional too about the culture and environment that we are building at Quick Hire.
Yeah.
Something that we're very, very serious about. I've worked in corporate America. I know what it's like to feel like I have to plan being a mom around work. And that to me is so unfair. And so we've even tried to really build a culture where we're saying, hey, you know what? You can be an amazing parent. You can be an amazing aunt, an amazing godmother, whatever the other roles and hats that you play, and also be an amazing employee at Quick Hire. And so we do offer like flexible work arrangements, working from home. We really are about parental leave. That's something that we've really been huge advocates for and offer for our employees. Just a lot of things that we wanted to build in our culture that was welcoming to everyone and the many hats that they wear, so that they can bring their best selves to Quick Hire as well.
Yeah, and I was shocked just knowing how many companies and organizations do not offer just what I just think is basic as far as like parental leave. Like even Deborah, I believe, if it was your first child or second, was working in an organization where they did not offer that. And there are so many companies still that don't offer that. And so it's like, if you want to be competitive in this workforce, you have to incorporate some sort of parental leave to your employees.
Particularly to service workers, right?
Yeah.
Who I think are the least likely to have access to these kinds of programs, and may need it the most.
Yep.
All right. Well, you've had incredible success since you've founded, launched this company. And I've read in a few sources, you're actually the first Black woman in your state to raise over $1 million in venture funding. So first of all, congrats and thank you for what you've built. What are you hoping to do with Quick Hire? Tell me the vision of how you hope it will grow and expand.
We are really measuring our success by impact, really trying to figure out like really life change. So we're going into a part of the business where it's not just about helping people find the right job, but what is happening to people after they've been hired. That is something that we're really trying to now figure out, and figure out how we can best support people as they navigate their careers. So we have a lot of features coming out around that, which is what we're calling Quick Hire Grow. But that's really our vision for the company, is trying to help people find fulfillment, and figure out what it is that they're meant to do, who they're meant to be, whether that is staying in the service industry or not. So when they come to our platform, we ask them what their goals are, and it's okay if it's not in the service industry. We just really want to know genuinely what it is what makes them tick, because we really do feel like the better we can match people with what they truly, truly want to do, the better engaged workforce we're going to provide for employers. And that's really what we're about. So that's what Quick Hire, the vision for Quick Hire. And then again, the impact about how can Angela and I, as founders and the many hats that we wear, how can we also continue to have impact as individuals as we continue to build Quick Hire is something that is huge for us also.
Hmm. Yeah. Like, for example, I was speaking to one of our family members, and she's been in the service industry for many, many years as a server. I mean, probably 7+ years. And she was just expressing to me how she feels stuck and she doesn't know who to talk to, how to advance, or anything like that. She feels like she's acquired some skills along the way, but she doesn't know how to make that next step.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be able to, someone can just log into Quick Hire and easily know how to make that next step.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense and
Hmm.
absolutely sounds really needed. Can you talk a bit about what you learned about work and also life from your parents?
Oh, that's a great question.
That's a really, really good question because I really do feel like, man, there is something about the immigrant struggle
Hmm.
that is just, uh, to witness it is nothing, there's nothing like it. And the grit that has to come alongside that from coming from another country and having to literally build from ground up if you're coming as the first one. So our parents, they came to Uganda. They came from Uganda in 1980, and my dad always says that he came to this country with $100 that he lost in
Yeah.
the Newark airport.
Oh my
And so,
gosh.
A
yeah,
rough
so
start.
it was a rough start
Wow.
to getting acclimated to this country. But they came as students. They were going to study at Iowa State, of all places,
Mm-hmm.
and they came on scholarship. That was the only way that they were able to come to this country. So they worked really, really hard to get those opportunities. But even still, at the time, they had our two oldest sisters, so they still had a family to support. And then shortly thereafter, after coming to this country, my brother was born in 84, I was born in 87. They were still in Iowa, they were still trying to figure things out. And so, I mean, they picked strawberries in the fields of Iowa. Those were like some of their first jobs. And they just worked really, really hard. You know, they were literally, still finishing school. They had kids. They were trading off kids at like the city bus stop because they
Yeah.
didn't have a car yet. Like all of these different things, and not fully knowing the language, but somehow we're both able to get PhDs at that. I'm just like, it just blows my mind because I'm like, ugh, I could not get a PhD right now. And just the amount of hustle and no excuses mentality that we witnessed was
Mm-hmm.
just naturally ingrained into us.
Do you
Yeah.
think that just watching the grit of their immigrant experience, as you put it, Deborah, Angela, I'm curious if that shaped your pull or your confidence in some way and becoming an entrepreneur specifically, starting your own thing?
Oh, absolutely. Because when you see all of the obstacles that they've overcome, especially when we go back to Uganda and we see the village where our parents grew up, and it's like, wow, if they were able to become, get their doctorates and all of that, we can start a company.
Mm-hmm.
Like they literally instilled in us that there is nothing that you can't do. And we've got to witness that firsthand. It's just all about, are you willing to put the work in and take that, and sometimes it's just taking that leap of faith.
Mm.
So many people they met along the way, they knew had the skill and had access to education, but they did not really take those opportunities and take those leaps of faith at the appropriate times. And so really trusting your gut and taking a chance are things that our parents instilled in us.
It's so inspiring. All right, you
Hmm.
guys clearly have a very close bond. You finish each other's sentences. But I don't know that I've ever heard of a company where two sisters are the co-founders. What is that like? That feels like action figure superheroes, like forces unite and we, but I'm sure there can be downsides. So what is it really like?
Yeah, I always say that there's five of us in the family,
Yeah.
And so you really have to know your relationships well. So like I love my siblings so so much, but it doesn't mean that I would start a business with all of them. And so I think is definitely something to keep in mind with the two of us, Angela and I. We've always been really close, even though, and Angie always says this really beautifully, it's like, even though this is our first company, we've really been building all our lives, whether it's being in the same organizations, or we formed a singing group when we were younger, or just having that scrappiness to where we paid for our first cars, just so many different things. We've always been working together to achieve a greater goal. And so building Quick Hire, for us, it was no different, really. And, I think that, do we disagree on things? Absolutely. We always have our entire lives. However, I am so grateful that I know that my co-founder knows me and has my best interest at heart. Like, I think that who you choose as your co-founder is so stinking critical. And I really feel like it can make or break your business. So for us, it's like, how lucky are we that I don't have to question whether or not Angela wants to have more equity than I do. I don't have to question whether or not Angela cares that I have to take off early because of my kids, because she's my kids' godparents. Like these things that you don't even think about as a co-founder, that we don't even have to worry about, because she is my sister, and she, like I said, she's my best friend. So for that, it's been, honestly, I think it's been really easy.
Yeah, and I mean, we know each other so well, and it's really important as you're starting a business. It's such a stressful situation, to have a founder that can just kind of pick up on signs and signals of how you're really feeling, even in times when you won't express it. So when we were doing our fundraising, that was a really stressful time, for Deborah, and so I was like, I'm picking up on this. I'm clearing everything off of your schedule
Yeah.
so you can focus on what you need to focus on. I'm in tune to when she's stressed. I'm in tune to when she's nervous. I'm in tune to even when she's stressed about what's going on with her children, or home life, and vice versa. And to have a co-founder, that really like cares about your physical and mental health outside of the business is so key, because we know that what we're building with Quick Hire is so important, but we care about each other, and we care about, our families and all of that. And so to have someone that really truly has your back in that capacity, I think it's just priceless.
And I tell you what, like, Angie has always been my best hype man, like, ever. She's always been the best hype man, and like, we laughed about it then, but like now, I seriously don't think that I could get up every day and do this if I didn't have her in that capacity. There are times where like I'd get off a call and I was like, Angie, I bombed that. Like, our company sucks. Like, because I definitely messed up that pitch. And she, I
I'm
think
like,
that
you killed it, girl. I
she's
know
like,
you
girl,
killed
that was so good. Don't even worry about it. We got this. Boop, boop, boop. But I also feel like, especially if you don't have a co-founder relationship, especially in those moments, could I improve? Absolutely. Are there things that we need to work on? 110%. But sometimes you just need somebody that is going to help pick your chin up off the floor when you feel like the world is caving in on you. Right. And that is what we just naturally have as sisters.
Right.
I feel like calling my sister and pitching her. She works in finance, so I'm like, okay, I could see the superpowers coming together. I like it.
Yay, there we go. Yeah.
Right. She doesn't know what's about to happen, but I appreciate the inspiration. The story of how you founded this company is so inspiring, and the fact that you were even nurturing this idea for a long time too. Like, I think that's going to really resonate with a lot of our listeners. What advice do you have for the literally millions and millions of women, especially mothers, who are reimagining what their careers look like, and they're on the fence, they're scared, they don't want to take a risk, or they're afraid of taking a risk, what would you say to them?
Hmm.
I can go ahead and jump in
Yeah.
and say that I think one of the biggest things that I try to tell people, especially mothers, is definitely have a circle, but choose your circle wisely.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times people will naturally just, and it could be, not on purpose, but they sometimes project their fears on you, their fear of
Yeah.
failing onto you. And especially as moms, because there are times where there are other moms that are just like, oh my gosh, or even others who are not moms that don't really understand the motherhood journey, that maybe like, what are you thinking? Like, that is insane. But that could be their own personal fears. And I think that sometimes is where great business ideas can just die and are never birthed because of it. So that is definitely one thing. And I would definitely say, like, pick and choose your battles. Like, that is really, when I think about my day, I can't accomplish everything. And I'm not going to be amazing at everything. One of the things I'm not amazing at is cooking. I'm not really good at it. And the thing is, I'm not about to sit here and be stressed out about the fact that I'm not an amazing cook. They have something called HelloFresh that is going to help me feel like an amazing cook. And I know that's just an analogy, but all of that to say is that, like, you can't do everything. And you just have to think to yourself, what are the most important things to me? What are the most important things to me? And how can I move those things forward? And everything else, I think, it's okay if the house is going to be dirty every now and again. It happens, But that, to me, is really how I have been able to move the needle forward, is really trying to be good at a few.
And I think as women here in America, I talk to so many, guests who have experienced this perfectionist culture around womanhood. And I think it's just an important message to drive home, like, especially as mothers, there really is only so many hours in a day. And whether we're talking about your family life, your own self-care, or your career, you literally can't be perfect at all of those things at all the time. So really being able to, be wise and accepting enough to know, like, this is what really matters today. This is what's really going to make a difference. And, Deborah's not going to be cooking dinner, and that's totally fine. And we just accept that. Okay. Well, at Motherly, we believe that motherhood brings out our superpowers. I would also add that I have seen aunt life bring out a part of my sister that was not there either. So I'm curious, for both of you, what would you describe as your superpower?
Oof, not it.
Yeah. My superpower, I would say, my superpower would be like, I don't know. I guess foresight is not so, you know, it's not like flying or anything like that. But I do think that the ability to think or see beyond now, is something that has really helped me in so many ways, and especially with Quick Hire or just life in general, and how what we're working on, the impact that it's going to make in future generations, or just how we are trying to
Mm-hmm.
change, just how people find work, and even as we were going through our round, or even as we were going through the beginning, like first 3 month stages, which were very, very difficult. I mean, when we were first trying to find where to start,
Mm-hmm.
people were telling us that, it's going to be $250,000 to just find a developer, and to tap into your family and friends to find that capital. And it's like, We have no family and friends that have that much money. There's just no way. So Deborah and I were just pinching our pennies and putting it all together, but literally be able to see if we can just get, our beta out. If we can just get our MVP out, we'll be able to do this. If we can
Mm-hmm.
just get to the next step, we will be able to do that. So always looking beyond the here and now
Mm.
is something that I think is my superpower. Um, yeah, not as fun as flying, but I think it's
Well,
okay.
Deborah,
I think it'll do.
what powers do you think Deborah, what superpowers do you think motherhood has brought out from you?
Yeah, I think that something around like the power to act or
Hmm.
put a plan together to move things forward. It's sometimes a blessing and a curse though, because then everybody will come to me like, okay, I need your help to just bring this to fruition. And
Mm.
it's like, okay, I can't take on everything. But I do feel like um, when there's an idea, I just have this itch to act on it.
Hmm.
Or when there is a problem or something, I have this desire to move forward and not just sitting there with it. And I think that is something that motherhood has honestly brought out of me, because I haven't always really leaned into that, but I feel like that is what I'm trying to teach my kids. And also, like with kids, like they need you. They need you in so many ways. And also, like as they now that I have school aged kids, it's like um, even trying to figure out what do they need academically, what do they need socially, all of these things that I feel like is so critical to the development. If I don't act, it can really be to the detriment of who these kids can grow up to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Hmm.
And that is something that it's such a responsibility that I don't take lightly. And so I think that is something that motherhood has definitely helped me really lean into. And so even with Quick Hire, it's like, okay, let's do this, and that.
Mm-hmm. If our listeners are interested in signing up for Quick Hire, either as a service worker or an employer, what should they do?
Yeah.
Well, they can find us online at getquickhire.com. So GETQUICKHIRE.com. And then Angie's social media, she's the one who's been helping me out with all that stuff.
Oh yeah, it's just Get Quick Hire across all platforms. Get Quick Hire, and then also we do have an app that's available for Android and iOS. So download the app, which is really simple to get started.
Well, Deborah and Angela, co-founders of Quick Hire, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for starting Quick Hire and sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with us on the Motherly Podcast.
Yay, thank
Awesome.
you. This was fun. Thanks for having
Thank
us.
You're
you.
welcome.